The transport ship docked at Station 9 with a soft hiss of pressure seals. Danny Carter grabbed his single bag and stepped into the airlock, his boots clicking against the metal floor. He was 24 years old, born and raised on a cattle ranch in Montana, and now he was about to become the first human cadet at the Galactic Military Academy. The station was enormous. Danny had seen pictures during his briefing back on Earth, but nothing prepared him for the real thing. The main corridor stretched out before him like a small city, filled with creatures he had never imagined. Some walked on two legs like him. Others floated, crawled, or moved in ways that made his head hurt if he watched too long. A tall reptilian officer approached him. The officer's scales were dark green, and his yellow eyes studied Danny with cold curiosity. "Human designation Danny Carter?" the officer asked. His voice was deep and rough, like rocks grinding together. "Yes, sir. I am Commander. I will be your primary instructor. Follow me." Danny followed without question. He noticed that other cadets stopped to stare at him as he passed. Some whispered to each other. A few pointed. Danny kept his eyes forward and said nothing. He was used to being the odd one out. Growing up on a ranch in the middle of nowhere had taught him that much. Commander led him through winding corridors until they reached a barracks section. The door slid open to reveal a rectangular room with 4 sleeping pods built into the walls. 3 aliens were already inside. The first was a creature about 4 feet tall. It had a hard shell covering its body, large compound eyes, and thin antennae that twitched nervously. The second was much taller than Danny, nearly 7 feet, and appeared to be made entirely of dark blue crystal. Light reflected off its angular body in strange patterns. The third was an amphibian with wet green skin and 4 muscular arms. It sat on the edge of its sleeping pod, watching Danny with wide, unblinking eyes. "These are your," Commander said, "and you will train together, eat together, and either succeed or fail together. The Academy does not care about your species or it cares only about results." The commander turned his yellow eyes to Danny one more time. "You are the first of your kind to attend this academy. Many doubt that humans belong here. Prove them wrong or prove them right. That choice is yours." With that, Commander left. The door slid shut behind him. For a long moment, nobody spoke. Danny set his bag down on the empty sleeping pod and turned to face his new. "Hey," he said, "I'm Danny." They made a series of clicking sounds. After a moment, Danny's translator implant caught up and converted the clicks into words. "I am called. I have heard stories about your world. Is it true that your planet tries to kill you?" Danny thought about that. He thought about the winters in Montana that dropped below freezing for months. He thought about the mountain lions that sometimes came down from the hills, and the rattlesnakes hiding in the tall grass during summer. He thought about the tornadoes, the wildfires, and the time he broke his arm falling off a horse and had to ride 3 miles back home before anyone could help him. "I guess you could say that," Danny admitted, "but it's not so bad once you get used to it." His antennae twitched rapidly. The translator interpreted this as a gesture of disbelief. The crystalline being called stepped forward. When it spoke, its voice sounded like wind chimes in a breeze. "I have read the ecological reports on Earth. Your gravity is 30% higher than the galactic standard. Your atmosphere contains a gas that causes cellular decay in most species. Your planet has extreme temperature variations and is filled with predators at every level of the food chain." Paused. "How did your species survive long enough to develop space travel?" Danny shrugged, stubbornness mostly. The 4-armed amphibian let out a wet laugh. "I think I like this human. He has a sense of humor." "I wasn't joking," Danny said. The laughter stopped. Over the next few hours, Danny learned more about his. Came from a hive world where his people lived in massive underground colonies. He had been chosen for the academy because of his quick reflexes and problem-solving skills. People were rare and ancient. their crystalline bodies nearly indestructible but slow to heal if damaged, was from a water world and had joined the academy to bring honor to his family's name. They asked Danny endless questions about Earth. They wanted to know about the oceans filled with creatures that could swallow ships whole. They asked about the diseases that had killed millions throughout human history. They asked about the wars humans had fought against each other, wars so brutal that the death tolls made antennae go completely still. Danny answered honestly. He told them about hurricanes and earthquakes. He told them about the animals that humans had hunted and the animals that had hunted humans right back. He told them about the ice ages his ancestors had survived with nothing but stone tools and fire. By the end of the night, his were looking at him differently. There was something in their eyes that Danny did not quite recognize. It was not fear, exactly. It was more like the way someone might look at a loaded weapon sitting on a table. "Your world sounds like a nightmare," said quietly. Danny thought about the sunsets over the mountains back home. He thought about the smell of pine trees after rain and the sound of his mother's voice calling him in for dinner. "It has its good parts too," he said. The next morning, they reported for their first day of training. Commander stood before a crowd of cadets from dozens of different species. His yellow eyes swept over them all, cold and measuring. "You are here because your governments believe you have potential," the commander said. "The Galactic Coalition needs soldiers who can face any threat and survive. This academy will push you to your limits and beyond. Many of you will fail. Some of you may die. That is the price of excellence." He paused, letting his words sink in. "Training begins now. Any questions?" Danny raised his hand. Commander turned to look at him with what might have been surprise. "Yes, human." "When do we start?" Danny asked. The commander stared at him for a long moment. Around them, other cadets shifted uncomfortably. "We start immediately," finally said. "Try to keep up." Danny nodded and fell into line with his, clicked nervously beside him. His crystalline body hummed with tension, cracked his 4 knuckles one by one. None of them knew what was coming, but Danny was ready. He had been ready his whole life. 3 weeks passed at the academy, and Danny Carter discovered something strange. Everything was easier than he expected. The morning runs that left other cadets gasping for breath barely made Danny sweat. The gravity on 9 was lighter than Earth's, and his legs felt like springs compared to the heavy pull of home. While struggled to keep pace and his crystalline joints groaned with effort, Danny jogged alongside them with a calm expression. "How are you not tired?" demanded one morning after a 10-mile run. The amphibian was bent over, his 4 hands on his knees, his gills flaring as he fought for oxygen. Danny considered the question. "I used to run farther than this just to check the fence lines on my family's ranch, sometimes before breakfast." Stared at him. "Before breakfast?" "The cows don't wait," Danny said simply. Word began to spread through the barracks about the human cadet. Danny noticed other species watching him during training exercises. Some looked curious. Others looked nervous. A few looked at him the way prey animals looked at something they could not understand. Danny did not let it bother him. He focused on his training, helped his when they struggled, and kept his head down. He was not here to make enemies. He was here to learn. But the whispers followed him everywhere. "I heard humans can run for entire days without stopping," one cadet said to another as Danny passed. "I heard they eat the flesh of other animals," another replied, "cooked over open flames. I heard their planet is so dangerous that most species cannot survive there for more than a few hours." Danny pretended not to hear. Most of it was true anyway. Then came the announcement that changed everything. Commander gathered all the cadets in the main assembly hall. His yellow eyes were serious, and his voice carried a weight that made everyone fall silent. "In 5 days, you will undergo the mandatory pain tolerance evaluation," the commander said. This test is required for all cadets. It measures your species' ability to withstand physical stress and determines your psychological resilience rating. Your scores will affect your placement in combat roles after graduation. A murmur ran through the crowd. Danny noticed that many cadets had gone pale, or whatever color their species turned when they were afraid. The test uses standardized neural stimulation, continued. It is calibrated for each species' biology. You will experience increasing levels of pain until you reach your threshold. There is no shame in reaching your limit. The purpose is measurement, not punishment. But Danny could see the fear in the eyes around him. Whatever this test was, it scared them badly. That night in the barracks, his could not sleep. Paced back and forth, his antennae twitching without pause. Sat perfectly still, but the light inside his crystalline body flickered in ways Danny had learned meant anxiety. Lay on his sleeping pod, staring at the ceiling with all four arms crossed over his chest. "Tell me about the test," Danny said. "Stop packing, you do not know. Humans have never taken it before. I'm the first one here, remember." The clicked nervously. "It is the worst part of the academy. The neural stimulators connect directly to your nervous system. They make you feel pain, real pain, at increasing levels. Most species can reach level 3 or 4 before they break. A few hardy ones make it to level 6 or 7. "What happens at higher levels?" Danny asked. "Level 8 causes cardiac distress in most species," said quietly. "Level 9 has caused permanent nerve damage. Level 10 is the maximum setting. In the history of the Academy, fewer than a dozen cadets have ever reached it. 3 of them died." Danny processed this information. "What does level 10 feel like?" "Nobody knows for certain," said. His voice was rough. "The cadets who survived could not describe it. The doctors say it is like every pain receptor in your body firing at maximum capacity simultaneously. Like being burned alive, frozen, crushed, and torn apart all at the same time." The barracks fell silent. "2 of my clutchmates attended this academy," continued. He did not look at Danny. "They died during the evaluation. Their hearts stopped at level 7. My family still does not speak their names." Danny did not know what to say. He looked at these aliens who had become something like friends over the past weeks, and he saw genuine terror in their eyes. "What level is considered passing?" he asked. "There is no passing level," said. "The test simply measures what you can endure, but cadets who score below level 3 are often removed from combat training. They are considered too fragile for frontline service. And cadets who score high, they are marked for special units, elite assignments, the kind of missions where pain tolerance means the difference between completing the objective and dying in the field." Danny thought about this for a long moment. He thought about the time he had set his own broken finger after a horse stepped on his hand. He thought about the kidney stone he had passed when he was 19, how he had driven himself to the hospital because there was no one else home. He thought about the summer he had worked through a fever of 103 degrees because the cattle needed tending and the work would not do itself. "What level does the test go up to?" he asked. 10, said. "The maximum is 10. Danny nodded slowly. Something in his expression made antennae go still. "Why do you ask?" the said. "Just curious." Sat up on his sleeping pod. His wide eyes studied Danny's face. "You are not afraid?" It was not a question. Danny shrugged. "Should I be?" "Yes," all 3 of us said together. Danny looked at them. He saw the fear they could not hide. He saw the memories of lost friends and family members haunting their eyes. He understood that for them, this test was a genuine threat to their lives. But he did not feel what they felt. He searched inside himself for that fear, and he could not find it. "Maybe it's different for humans," he said finally. "I guess we'll find out in 5 days." His exchanged glances. There was something new in their eyes now, something beyond fear. It was the look of people who had just realized they did not understand the creature standing in front of them. Danny lay down on his sleeping pod and closed his eyes. In 5 days, he would sit in that chair and face whatever the machine could throw at him. He was not worried. He had survived Montana winters. He had survived branding season and drought and loneliness that stretched for miles in every direction. A machine that caused pain. He had felt pain before. Everyone from Earth had. The only question was whether the machine was ready for him. The pain evaluation chamber was located deep in the medical wing of the station. Danny followed his through sterile white corridors until they reached a large waiting room filled with nervous cadets. Some paced. Others sat in silence. A few prayed to gods Danny had never heard of. Through a reinforced window, Danny could see the testing room. A single chair sat in the center, surrounded by monitoring equipment and holographic displays. Technicians in white coats moved around the machinery, checking readings and making adjustments. The cadets were called in one by one. Danny watched through the window as each species took their turn. A tall, thin being with silver skin sat in the chair first. The technicians attached sensors to its head and chest, then stepped back behind a safety barrier. The holographic display showed a number, Level 1. The silver being flinched slightly, Level 2. Its hands gripped the armrests, Level 3. It began to shake. At Level 4, it let out a high-pitched scream and the technician stopped the test immediately. Medical staff rushed in to help the cadet out of the chair. And that was one of the better results. Danny watched cadet after cadet break under the neural stimulation. Some made it to Level 5. A heavily armored species with thick plates covering its body reached Level 6 and was treated like a hero. A silicon-based, its body made of dense rock, managed to hit Level 7 before the test was stopped. The observers behind the reinforced glass applauded. Level 7. The whole room celebrated Level 7. Was called next. Danny watched his friend's small body climb into the chair. The technician spent extra time calibrating for his species' unique nervous system. When the test began, lasted until Level 3 before his compound eyes went dark and he slumped forward. The medical staff revived him quickly, but he had to be carried out of the room on a stretcher. When after, the crystalline being's body hummed with anxiety as the sensors were attached. At Level 4, cracks began to appear along his arms. At Level 5, a high ringing sound filled the room and the technician stopped immediately, had nearly shattered from the stress. Was called next. The four-armed amphibian walked into the testing room with his jaw set and his eyes hard. Danny knew he was thinking about his clutchmates who had died in the same chair. Made it to Level 6 before his hearts gave out. The medical staff had to use emergency resuscitation to bring him back. Then Danny's name was called. He stood up and walked to the testing room. Behind him, he could hear the whispers of other cadets. The human is going next. This should be interesting. How long do you think it will last? Danny ignored them. He pushed open the door and stepped into the testing room. The chair looked different up close. It was made of smooth metal with restraints for the arms and legs. Sensors hung from thin cables overhead. The technicians watched Danny approach with obvious curiosity. "Please sit," one of them said. She was a small being with large dark eyes and delicate hands. "We will need to calibrate the system for your species. You are the first human we have tested." Danny sat in the chair. The metal was cold against his back. The restraints clicked into place around his wrists and ankles, not tight enough to hurt, just tight enough to hold him still. "Is that necessary?" Danny asked, nodding at the restraints. "Standard procedure," the technician said. "Most species thrash at higher levels. We do not want you to injure yourself." Danny said nothing. He watched as the technicians attached sensors to his temples, his chest, and the base of his skull. Through the reinforced window, he could see Commander watching alongside several other high-ranking officers. Their eyes never left him. "We are ready to begin," the technician announced, "starting at level 1. Danny waited. He felt a slight tingle run through his body, like a mild electric current. "Level 1 complete. How do you feel?" "Fine," Danny said. Proceeding to level 2. The tingle increased. Danny felt it in his teeth now, a slight buzzing sensation. He shifted in the chair, trying to get comfortable. Level 2 complete. Proceeding to level 3. The sensation grew stronger. Danny recognized it now as pain, but it was distant, like a headache that had not fully arrived yet. He had felt worse stubbing his toe on the fence posts back home. Level 3 complete. All readings normal. Proceeding to level 4. Now the pain was real. Danny felt it spreading through his muscles, a deep ache that pulsed with his heartbeat. He took a slow breath and let it out. The technicians watched their monitors with wide eyes. Level 4 complete. Human vitals remain stable. This is unexpected. Proceeding to level 5. The pain doubled. Danny's jaw tightened. His fingers curled around the armrests. It felt like someone was pressing hot coals against every inch of his skin from the inside. The technician hesitated. She checked her readings again, then looked up at Danny with confusion on her face. Danny looked back at her. Then he looked at the observation window where Commander and the other officers stood watching. "Are we starting now?" he asked. The room went completely silent. The technician's hands trembled as she checked her equipment. "The test began 4 minutes ago. You are currently at level 5. Danny blinked. "Oh, okay." He heard a commotion behind the observation window. The officers were talking rapidly to each other. Commander had not moved. His yellow eyes were fixed on Danny with an expression that might have been shock. "Proceeding to level 6, the technician said. Her voice was barely a whisper. The pain increased. Danny grunted softly. This was starting to get uncomfortable. It reminded him of the time he had grabbed an electric fence by accident, except the shock did not stop. Level 7. Now Danny understood why other species screamed. The pain was everywhere, in his bones, in his blood, in the spaces between his thoughts. But he had felt pain before. Everyone from Earth had. You learn to keep going. You learn to breathe through it. Level 8. Danny's vision blurred at the edges. His heart pounded in his chest. The restraints creaked as his muscles tensed involuntarily. Behind the glass, he saw medical staff preparing emergency equipment. Level 9. A sound escaped Danny's throat, something between a grunt and a growl. The pain was immense now, a roaring fire that consumed everything. But beneath the fire, beneath the agony, a part of Danny remained calm. A part of him that had survived Montana winters and summer droughts and the quiet, grinding hardship of life on a death world. Level 10, maximum setting. Everything was pain. Danny could not see. He could not hear. He could only feel, and what he felt was beyond description. It was like being torn apart and put back together wrong, over and over again. But he did not scream. He did not beg. After what felt like hours but was only 30 seconds, Danny forced his eyes open. Through the haze of agony, he looked at Commander. "Is there a level 11?" he asked. Commander slammed his hand against a button on the wall. "Stop the test. Stop it now." The pain vanished instantly. Danny slumped back in the chair, breathing hard. Sweat dripped down his face. His muscles ached like he had run 100 miles. But he was alive. He was awake. And somewhere deep inside, he was almost disappointed that it was over. The technician stared at him with an expression he did not recognize. Fear, he realized. She was afraid of him. "What are you?" she whispered. Danny wiped the sweat from his eyes and shrugged. "I'm just a guy from Montana," he said. Medical staff surrounded Danny the moment the restraints released. They pressed scanners against his chest, his head, his arms. They checked his heart rate and blood pressure. They shined lights into his eyes and asked him to count backwards from 10. Danny answered their questions calmly. Yes, he could feel his fingers. No, his vision was not blurry anymore. Yes, he remembered his name and where he was. The lead doctor, a being with 6 eyes and tentacles instead of hands, studied the readings with obvious confusion. "This is impossible," she said. "Your stress hormones have already returned to baseline levels. Your neural pathways show no signs of damage. According to these readings, you could take the test again right now." "I'd rather not," Danny said, "but I could if you needed me to." The doctor made a sound that the translator could not interpret. She waved her tentacles at the other medical staff, and they helped Danny off the chair and onto a nearby examination table. "Stay here," she ordered. "Do not move until we clear you." Danny nodded and lay back on the table. His body was tired, but it was a familiar kind of tired. The kind he felt after a long day of hard work, nothing he could not handle. Through the window, he could see the observation room emptying. Commander and the other officers had disappeared, their faces grim and their movements hurried. Something was happening, and Danny had a feeling it was about him. He was right. In a secure conference room 3 levels above the medical wing, the Academy's leadership gathered around a large holographic display. Commander stood at the head of the table, his yellow eyes moving from face to face. "What we witnessed today cannot leave this room until we understand it fully," he said. The human cadet reached level 10, maximum neural stimulation. He remained conscious and coherent throughout. "That should not be possible," said a scientist named Doctor. She was a tall being with pale skin and silver hair, an expert in comparative xenobiology. "Level 10 causes immediate cardiac arrest in 98% of tested species. The remaining 2% suffer permanent neurological damage. The human showed neither response." "Explain it," Commander ordered. Doctor pulled up a series of files on the holographic display. Images of Earth appeared, blue oceans and green continents spinning slowly in the darkness of space. "I have been studying Earth's ecological data since the humans made first contact," she said. "What I have found is disturbing." She gestured, and the display changed to show a map covered in red zones. "Earth has extreme temperature variations. Some regions experience temperatures low enough to freeze most species solid. Others reach temperatures that would cause heat stroke within minutes. Humans survive in both." Another gesture. The display showed a chart of Earth's atmosphere. "Their air contains high levels of oxygen, a gas that causes cellular damage in many species. Humans not only survive this environment, they require it. Their bodies use the oxygen to fuel a metabolism that allows them to maintain constant high body temperatures." "Get to the point," Commander said. Doctor nodded. "Earth is what we classify as a Category 12 death world. The gravity is crushing. The weather is violent. The planet is filled with predators, parasites, and diseases that have killed billions of humans throughout their history." She paused, letting her words sink in. "Humans did not evolve to be comfortable. They evolved to survive. Their nervous systems developed the ability to process extreme pain without shutting down. Their minds learned to compartmentalize suffering so they could continue functioning. They do not ignore pain. They acknowledge it and keep going anyway." The room was silent. "There is more," Doctor continued. "I reviewed human historical records. Their ancestors practiced something called persistence hunting. They would chase prey animals for hours, sometimes entire days, until the animals collapsed from exhaustion. While most species either catch their prey quickly or give up, humans simply refuse to stop." She changed the display again. This time it showed human medical records. "I found documented cases of humans continuing to fight after sustaining injuries that should have been immediately fatal. Soldiers who kept moving with broken bones. Workers who ignored heart attacks until their shifts were over. Athletes who competed with torn muscles and shattered joints." Commander leaned forward. You are telling me that pain tolerance is a survival trait for their species? Yes, but it is more than that. Doctor's voice dropped lower. Humans have a concept they call pushing through. When faced with suffering, they do not seek to escape it. They accept it as temporary and focus on what needs to be done. Their psychology is built around the assumption that pain will not last forever, so there is no point in stopping. Another officer spoke up. What are the implications for combat applications? Doctor turned to face him. If one untrained human can exceed our maximum pain threshold, imagine what trained human soldiers could accomplish. They could continue fighting after injuries that would incapacitate any other species. They could endure torture without breaking. They could survive in environments that would kill the rest of us. They would be nearly unkillable, someone whispered. Not unkillable, Doctor corrected, but very, very difficult to stop. The meeting continued for another hour. They discussed protocols and security measures and how to report this information to the Galactic Coalition's Central Command. But Danny heard none of it. He remained in the medical wing, lying on the examination table, waiting for someone to tell him he could leave. Eventually, he grew bored and sat up. The medical staff had stopped watching him so closely. He felt fine, just hungry. Can I go get lunch? He asked a passing nurse. The nurse, a small furry creature with 3 eyes, looked at him like he had asked to swallow a star. You just underwent level 10 neural stimulation, she said. You should be in intensive care. I feel okay. That is the problem. But she let him go. Danny walked out of the medical wing and made his way to the cafeteria. He was halfway through his meal when and found him. They stood at the edge of his table, staring at him in silence. Hey, Danny said, his mouth full of food. How are you guys feeling? Santini twitched rapidly. How are we feeling? How are you feeling? We heard you reached level 10. Yeah. And you asked if there was a level 11. I was curious. Sat down across from him. The amphibian's 4 arms were folded tightly against his chest. His wide eyes had not blinked once. Danny, he said slowly, what are humans? Danny considered the question while he chewed. He thought about his family back on Earth, about his neighbors and friends, about the billions of people going about their ordinary lives on a planet that apparently terrified the rest of the galaxy. We're just people, he said finally. Nothing special. We get up, we work, we deal with whatever comes our way, that's all. His exchanged glances. Whatever they saw in each other's eyes, it was not comfort. I think, said quietly, that your definition of nothing special is very different from ours. Danny shrugged and went back to eating. He was still hungry, and the food was not going to eat itself. Behind him, word was already spreading through the station. The human had reached level 10. The human had asked for more. By tomorrow, everyone would know, and nothing at the academy would ever be quite the same. The months that followed changed Danny's life in ways he never expected. He became famous, though he never wanted to be. Cadets from every species whispered his name in the corridors. Instructors treated him with a strange new respect. Even Commander, who rarely showed emotion, sometimes looked at Danny with something that might have been wonder. Danny ignored most of it. He continued his training, helped his when they needed it, and kept his head down. But the story of the pain evaluation spread far beyond 9. Ships carried the tale to distant worlds. News feeds picked it up. Within a year, the entire Galactic Coalition knew about the human who had asked for level 11. Then came the others. Earth sent more cadets to the academy. First 5, then 20, then 100. Each one underwent the pain tolerance evaluation. Each one broke the expectations of the observers. Some reached level 8. Others hit level 9. A woman named Brooks from Texas matched Danny's score of 10 and actually laughed when the test ended. She said it reminded her of the time she had stepped on a fire ant hill barefoot. The academy was forced to recalibrate everything. They extended the pain scale to 15 and called the new upper levels the human range. It became a joke among cadets, though no one laughed when they said it. Danny watched his fellow humans arrive with a mixture of pride and sadness. Pride because they proved that he was not unique, that all of his species shared the same unbreakable core. Sadness because he saw how the other species looked at them now. The curiosity had faded. In its place was something colder, something that looked almost like fear. "They are scared of us," Danny said one night in the barracks. He and his had grown close over the years of training, closer than Danny had ever been with anyone except his family back home. Clicked softly. Can you blame them? Before humans arrived, the strongest species in the coalition could barely reach level 7. Now your people treat level 10 like a minor inconvenience. "We don't mean to scare anyone." "That is what makes it worse," said. His crystalline body caught the light as he moved. "You are not trying to be frightening. This is simply what you are. Imagine meeting a species that could walk through fire without noticing. Would you not be afraid?" Danny had no answer for that. Graduation came on a cold morning when the station's artificial sun had not yet risen. Danny stood in line with his, all of them wearing the formal uniforms of the Galactic Coalition military. Commander moved down the row, pinning medals to chests and speaking words of congratulation. When he reached Danny, the commander paused. "Cadet Carter," he said, "you have exceeded every expectation. You have proven that humans belong among the stars. The Coalition is fortunate to have you." "Thank you, sir." Leaned closer. His yellow eyes were unreadable. "I have read the reports about I have studied your species' history. I understand now why you asked if there was a level 11. Sir, you were not being arrogant. You genuinely did not know if that was all we had." The commander shook his head slowly. "I have trained soldiers from 300 different species over the course of my career. I have never met anyone like you, and now there are hundreds more of your kind joining us every year." He pinned the medal to Danny's chest. "The galaxy is changing, Cadet. I hope we are ready for it." After graduation, Danny was recruited into a specialized unit called the Vanguard. They were the Coalition's elite, sent on missions too dangerous for regular forces, and at Danny's request, his came with him. Had overcome his nervous nature and become an expert in tactical analysis. His nearly indestructible body made him perfect for heavy combat situations. His 4 arms and lightning reflexes had turned him into one of the best close-quarters fighters in the Coalition. They were a strange team. A crystal, an amphibian, and a human from Montana. But they worked well together. They trusted each other. They had survived the academy together, and that bond was stronger than species or. Their first mission came 6 months after graduation. The briefing was held in a dark room deep in Coalition Command. A holographic map floated in the center, showing a star system on the edge of known space. "The corridor," the briefing officer said. "A contested border zone. 3 Coalition outposts have gone silent in the past week. We believe hostile forces have taken control of the sector. Your mission is to assess the situation and, if possible, rescue any survivors." She paused, her eyes moving to Danny. "Intelligence suggests heavy resistance. Casualties are expected. This is a volunteer mission only." Danny looked at his. Santini twitched nervously, but he nodded. His crystalline body hummed with quiet determination, cracked his 4 knuckles one by one and grinned. "We're in," Danny said. The shuttle ride to the corridor took 3 days. Danny spent most of it checking his equipment and talking with his. They shared stories about their homes, their families, their dreams for the future. It felt strange to talk about the future when they might not survive the next week. But that was what soldiers did. They hoped, even when hope seemed foolish. On the final night before they reached the corridor, asked Danny a question that had clearly been bothering him for years. "Why did you join the academy? You could have stayed on Earth. You could have lived a quiet life on your ranch. Why come out here and fight for species you had never even met? Danny thought about it for a long moment. He thought about the stars he had watched from his bedroom window as a child. He thought about the first time he had seen an alien ship land on Earth, the way his heart had raced with excitement instead of fear. Because there's more out here, he said finally. More to see, more to do, more to become. Staying home would have been safe, but it would have been small. I wanted something bigger. Even if it kills you. Danny smiled. Everything kills you eventually. Might as well die doing something that matters. The shuttle dropped out of hyperspace the next morning. The corridor stretched before them, dark and dangerous and full of unknowns. Warning lights flashed across the cockpit display. Enemy signals lit up the scanner like stars in a midnight sky. Danny stood in the shuttle bay with checking his weapon one final time. His heart beat steady and slow. His hands did not shake. "Ready?" asked. The crystalline being's voice chimed with nervous energy. Danny looked at his team, the who had learned to be brave, the crystal who had learned to bend without breaking, the amphibian who had joined them to honor the memory of his lost clutchmates. They were not human. They would never understand what it felt like to come from a death world, to carry the weight of a species built to survive anything. But they had chosen to stand beside him anyway. That was enough. That was more than enough. Danny shouldered his pack and moved toward the shuttle doors. The bay filled with the sound of engines roaring and weapons charging. Somewhere ahead, danger waited. Somewhere ahead, people needed saving. "I've been ready my whole life," Danny said. "Let's go see what all the fuss is about." The doors opened and they stepped out into the unknown together. Behind them, the shuttle's engines faded into silence. Ahead of them, the galaxy waited. And for the first time in a very long time, the galaxy was afraid. Not of the darkness, not of the enemies lurking in the shadows, but of the species that walked into the darkness smiling and asked if there was anything worse.